Sample number 4, knit fabrics. As I mentioned in the introduction to this section, knit fabrics are something we probably will not be using in our Fashion 100 class. Knit fabrics are made of either synthetic fibers, which are man-made, or the yarns used to create the knit fabric are natural. Most common being cotton, you have wool, you have linen. So the way that these fibers that make up the fabric yarns are used is what makes it a knit fabric. The yarns are actually knit, interwoven together. And remember, the most common way to tell if it is a knit fabric versus a woven fabric is that the edges don't fray, because you don't have those long yarns, and also there's a lot of stretch in a knit fabric, obviously. Part of it is because of the way it is constructed. Part of it is probably because of the content. It could have lycra in it or something that's very stretchy. There are two basic kind of knit fabrics. You have a double knit, which is a heavier knit fabric. It's got more stability to it, and it usually has more stretch in the cross section than it does in the lengthwise. It's a little more stable lengthwise than it is across the width of the fabric. That is a double knit. Well, most importantly is when you pull the edges, they go back to being just normal edges. The other type of knit that is most common is a single knit fabric. And what happens with the single knit, you can feel it's much lighter, and when you pull the edge of a single knit fabric, it curls towards the right side of the fabric. So you have this very, very pronounced curling effect. That is a single knit. So under the name of the knit fabric, I would just go with either single knit or is it a double knit that does not curl at the edge. The content, again, it can either be man-made fabrics or it can be natural fibers. The easiest way is to do that crinkle test I've talked about, where you crunch it up in your fist, and if it stays crinkled, you know there's a lot of man-made fiber in there, really wrinkled. If you do that same test and it just bounces back with no evidence of ever having been wadded up in your hand, you know it's got synthetic fibers in it. So for the content, I would either do your best guess of either, man-made fibers or natural fibers. As far as fabric care goes, whenever you're dealing with natural fibers, you need to be a little bit more cautious when you are subjecting them to heat. It isn't so much the heat in the water that affects them adversely, it's the heat in the dryer. They're organic, they're natural fibers, so they will shrivel up and shrink if you subject them to too much heat. Your synthetic fibers, it isn't as big an issue in a washer and dryer, as you can tell by the crinkling. They're a little bit more impervious to having the structure changed. The only thing you have to be cautious of with synthetic fibers is a super hot iron, because they are synthetic. They are made from petroleum or stuff, and they can melt. So that is all we're going to talk about knits in Fashion 100.